Perdition's End? An Owl House tale written by old Ben Kenobi. So passes Emperor Belos, Lord of the Boiling Isles. The trees there are green, the nights there are quiet. I look forward to seeing it again. As the boiling rain melted his form and the boots of the witches engulfed his vision for the last time, Emperor Belos never thought he would ever again see a land where the trees sighed gently in the winds, nor would he ever again go to sleep without hearing infernal screams and demonic howls mixed in a cacophony of evil. Fate, it seems, had other plans for him. Note, this is an MLP-FIM and the Owl House crossover, though as it is told from the perspective of the ponies, knowledge of the Owl House and Emperor Belos is not needed. The experience of reading this will be quite different if you know who Belos is or if you don't. The stale, putrid air of the Boiling Isles whipped through Philip's tufted beard as he steadied himself. Before him was the hazy form of a human, the first human he had seen here for so many years. Loose? Philip pleaded to the figure standing implacably before him, the only being in this wretched, thrice-accursed realm that could still show him a semblance of mercy. Loose, I'm free. Thank goodness you saved me from that horrible curse. The scene in front of him began to sharpen into focus, and as it did so, he felt his heart sink as his palms grew cold and clammy. For the more he looked into her eyes, her burning, yellow eyes, her terrible fanged maw, the harder he found it to remember the human face that had resided there at all. Yet despite his creeping terror, Philip continued, steadfast in his belief that the creature standing before him still, at its core, had mercy in it that could not ever be extinguished. I was cursed with terrible sickness by dark magic. Just like you, mentor. It forced me to do all those horrible things, but now I'm free. A sudden spike of pain shot through his hand, and he gazed up in horror. The Boiling Isles were ready to unleash their namesake, the terrible acid rain shower. Yet he looked over at the creature in front of him, and saw the rain did not seem to bother it in the slightest. The acid sizzled through the flesh of the last true human left in this land as the clouds began to part, with the drop turning to a downpour. In that moment, Philip Whitbane felt agony as he had not felt in many a year, not since he had lost his only. He fell to his knees, his one hope staring down at him with cold, blazing eyes. Quickly now, he pleaded, crawling upon the floor. Don't you want to make peace, Luce? As she stood there, unmoving, the acid that seared his sagging flesh simply bounced off of her as if she was now truly a part of this infernal land. Don't just stand there. Philip hissed as he felt the last remnants of flesh melting away. You'll be just as bad, just as conniving and just as unforgivable as those witches. What remained of the once great Emperor Belos stared up at her, as he felt his voice fade and his whole body collapse. The witch hunter general croaked out the final words he would ever speak upon those cursed isles. We're human. We're better than this. The world darkened as three figures, two tall and one small, stepped in front of Luce's passive figure, as the white-haired witch with the messy hair and cruelty-laced stare leveled her face with his skull and spat, "Well, we ain't." 2 feet and a paw were the last sight Emperor Belos, Lord of the Boiling Isles, ever saw upon that realm he had once ruled. Darkness came. The endless field of stars, a backdrop to the windows to the past floating through space, each of them depicting a moment of the life of the purple alicorn that stood observing them. Princess Twilight Sparkle had not found her way to Siellum since her final moments as a unicorn, before her ascension to princesshood. Yet now that Celestia and Luna had abdicated and left her as sole guardian of the day and the night, she felt a certain inexplicable pull to this quiet, secret realm, as if something still awaited here. Upon her lavender wings she sailed past memory after memory, the return of Nightmare Moon, her first winter in Ponyville, until she found her heart's desire at last. Her pulse quickened as her wing beats slowed to a halt in front of the memory of her ascension. Lights danced around the purple unicorn as the ivory form of Princess Celestia, serene and regal as she always was, watched on as her student rose, higher and higher, into the Ga. Twilight fell backwards in surprise, her vision quite suddenly and unexpectedly filled by 2 blue-gray eyes. Hello, came a quiet, reserved male voice. You'll forgive the interruption, I hope, but I believe I have been entrapped in one of your memories. Since I am a human and you are not, I really don't think I belong here, so if you would be ever so kind, that is to say, if you have the ability. He left the sentence hanging. Twilight's mind acted like it did whenever she saw something new. It went into overdrive. A younger Twilight may have panicked, or else become overexcited at the prospect, but this Twilight had found herself at the end of many years of adventure and experience. She breathed and let her inner voice talk her through her thoughts. So, he has knowledge of magic, then. And not just the ordinary, everyday kind of levitation or light magic used by unicorns, no, but that of memories, of the mind, a realm of magic she believed was known only to alicorns. This suggests at least one of 2 things. that the visitor either comes from a world where the magic used by everyday people was far more powerful than that of Equestria, or that her little visitor was someone of great magical power and influence in his realm. Either way, the implications did not set her at ease. She opened her eyes, and saw that the being was still waiting for her to reply, as patient and polite as ever. Perhaps a little too patiently, a little too politely. "Indeed, I do have a means of releasing you," she said, careful not to reveal too much about herself, though I am afraid to say, I must refrain from doing so immediately, until I know a little more about you. Though any other pony would not have seen any reaction to this, lightning-fast Alicorn's senses caught the sight of his right eye twitching, his left hand, just for a moment, balling itself into a fist. Twilight smiled inwardly. This was a person who was used to getting his own way, the one who held all the cards. Yet despite this, he let her continue. "Before I consider releasing you, I must know how you found your way into this liminal place, betwixt life and death." Casual ponish, as she used amongst her friends, was not something she would use with dignitaries from other lands outside of Equestria, and she saw no reason to use it here, either. One of Celestia's final lessons, she thought, with a melancholy smile. The figure's eyes widened with pity. "I hear a note of loss in your voice, sorrow in your smile," he said, surprising Twilight. "I remember the loss of my world and my brother." He blinked, looking quickly away and wiping his eyes. Twilight shook her head, feeling her heart sink at the sight of his true regret that could not be fabricated or falsified in a realm of spirit and memory like this. Yet there was something else there, something she could not quite put her hoof on, that gave her pause for a moment. I am sorry," he began, but Twilight raised a hoof to cut him short. "I will not say do not weep," she said, gently, "for not all tears are evil. To be separate from one's land, from one's kith and one's kin, is a pain that I have seen more times in my life than I ever wished for. Yet, you must understand, in releasing you and taking you with me, I would be taking in an unknown being from another realm, and my kingdom has known scarring and the sowing of mistrust for days beyond count." The man in the memory sighed, shoulders fallen back in defeat. I understand," he muttered in resignation, "to allow myself into midst with open open hooves, such mercy could only be seen as folly to such a wise and protective ruler as yourself. Nor," continued Twilight, steadfast, "did I say I would consign you to your fate. For it is not the way of my lands or my people to turn down travelers in need. So I, Princess Twilight Sparkle, ruler of the night and day and all of Equestria, shall take thine spirit into my care as we travel to the mortal realm of Equestria. Then, thine fate shall be decided." There was a pause, and Twilight did a double take. Was it her imagination, or did she just see a flash of furious blue in the figure's eye? "I accept your gracious request, your highness, and if I may say so, feel nothing but respect for the lengths you go to keep your people safe." He bowed, but he could not disguise the fact that his words sounded choked out. Was he choking back tears of gratitude and emotion, or was it something darker he was holding back? Fury, at being denied an incarnate form, perhaps? "One last thing. You know my name," said Twilight, "yet I do not know yours. How would you prefer I address you, Mr. Emperor He stopped himself, breathed in, then looked Twilight straight in the eyes. "Philip. My name is Philip Whitbane." Twilight nodded as her horn began to flare up with purple, luminescent magic. Yet even as the familiar warmth coursed through her body and into her horn, still she could not shake the cold feeling that somewhere was wrong with this whole affair. On the one hoof, as much as he tried to keep it from her sight, she could feel the resentment, the pride, the ego coming off of the spirit like waves of heat from the glazing sun in the bone-dry desert all those years ago. Perhaps when he had been alive, he was more gaily, more subtle with his speech and his mannerisms, and he certainly seemed to be under the impression that Twilight trusted him. Yet after the shock of passing from the material plane, after whatever horrors he had gone through in his life, and his presence here, amidst the memories of the divine themselves, misdirection, lying and deceit were nigh impossible, even for someone who had not been through what he clearly had. And yet, he was here, wasn't he? His soul had not manifested itself in Tartarus, or someplace even lower than that, but in Salem. That counted for something, she hoped. When Twilight Sparkle opened her eyes, she saw before her a tiny blue spark, the soul of Philip Whitbane, the same color she could have sworn she had seen flash in his eye for just a moment. A sudden flash, and the spark was no more, replaced instead by the bearded figure in old-timey clothing, who merely smiled a warm smile of gratitude at the Alicorn. She waved her horn casually, and a swirling doorway opened up in front of her. "Welcome, Philip Whitbane, to the magical land of Equestria. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the video make sure to like and leave a comment and share it with a friend. See you all later."